the authenticity and the creativity and all of those things that this industry is supposed to be about. And if you sit down and you get all micro on your business plan and kind of figuring out the perfect place, the perfect time, demand projections, all the stuff, you never actually get down to the business of producing something wonderful and creative that is outside the box and doesn't necessarily fit in a specific market segment, doesn't fit a perfect demand curve or something like that. But if you get down to it, you make something that you love, you make something that you're passionate about, and that is excellent.
Yeah.
With this in particular, it is so much more about the heart, what goes into it, because you can go out today, you could pick up one of any 50 rums on a shelf, and they're going to range from $9.99 to $80 plus. What makes you choose what you're choosing? We're not competing on price. We're not competing on availability because we're often sold out. Yeah. We're competing on the fact that it's very good, but that people are interested in finding out that it's good.
Yeah.
Because you see it on the shelf, we think it's beautiful, looks great, but that's not the whole thing. The pilgrimage here to St. Michael's, they want to meet Ben, they want to see how we're doing it, and then if they like it, they want to take a bit.
It's kind of interesting because there hadn't been a lot of evolution. There hadn't been a lot of development in the marketplace, literally since the 70s, when gin and vodka started to become popular and whiskey started to fall out of fashion. And there was this, really 20, almost 30-year span where there wasn't much going on. Yeah. And suddenly you have this great revival because people are starting to want more from their spirits. They're starting to be more exploratory and try new things and sort of get into kind of obscure and uncommon liquors. And so in turn, you have people saying, well, why don't we distill rye whiskey again? Why aren't we making an American single malt? Why aren't we exploring something other than a classic London-style dry gin?
Yeah.
And of course, now we also have thousands of vodkas on the market.
Yeah.
But in every category now, you suddenly have all this exploration. You have all these variances, and it's a very interesting place to be. And people are loving it.
Well, I always like to say, you rarely hear the words young, delicious, American rum in the same sentence.
Yeah.
So we set out to make that.
Yeah.
We wanted to say, all right, a rum doesn't have to be from the Caribbean and 25 years old to be held to a high level of, authenticity and taste and, exactly. And so, and we're not like wine where it's like you have to sniff it so intensely and smell it. You can, and Ben certainly always gets a ton more flavor, and smells off of a spirit than even I do. But we encourage people, you can sip it, you can throw it back, you can do whatever you want. You're going to get different flavors on the front, on the back. But our dark rum, to just be very basic, people who like rum love our dark rum. Mm-hmm. People who hate rum love our dark rum. Ben has managed to, if you like Mount Gay, you walk in here, people say the common ones are Mount Gay, Goslings, and there's one more that people always liken it to. Myers. And if you like a dark rum like that, you like a good dark rum that you can either sip or blend into a fabulous dark and stormy, for example, you're going to love our dark rum.
Rye is a difficult whiskey to make, which is why so few distillers do it. Rye has a very high beta-glucan content, which is sort of this protein-like substance that if you take it above 152 degrees, basically turns into superglue. So it's a very touchy grain to work with. It also is not tremendously efficient in terms of kind of that starch conversion where we get the sugars that are fermentable. So you get a fairly low yield in terms of the amount of alcohol that comes out of it. So it's just naturally also a more expensive whiskey to make. So not a lot of distillers bother with it. It certainly was a challenge, for me working on it because one, I wanted to do something that was fairly different. Unlike all sort of the 95 to 100% ryes that are out there right now, we're a very low rye content rye. So we're 55% rye. And that lends itself to, a little more subtlety in terms of that profile. But you don't get to, escape sort of the technical challenge of mashing and working with rye. So it was all these little bits, developing the recipe and kind of wanting to create a rye that, didn't have that sort of catch in the back of the throat spiciness that you get with all those LDI ryes. But also one that sort of evoked what people remember about Maryland rye, which was that it was subtle, it was complex. You got all that sort of, floral complexity and a little hint of that spiciness, but it was balanced. And ultimately, it was that balance that we were looking for. I usually describe rye as a more interesting bourbon, and I think we've sort of successfully gotten there.
Okay, so one last question. I love your bottles.
Thank you.
I think that I'm amazed how some. I think it's obviously changing, but the aesthetic of the bottle is really important.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, half the people just come in and say we love the way the bottle looks.
Right, and it's the bottle was interesting. I actually found this on a well-known distilling forum. It was a new bottle. It's made in Pennsylvania by Anchor Hocking, and it was actually modeled off of a rye bottle from right around 1900. And it was very interesting because in the spec sheet, it showed the original bottle next to kind of this modern interpretation of it. And I sort of saw it, loved it, and thought this would be the perfect bottle, and that was it. And so it's kind of nice. It's sort of a classic design. It's made in America, and that's how we came to this bottle.